Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to cook one of my favorite dishes, steak Diane. I first learned this dish, I apprenticed at the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, and it was a dish that was served tableside, which was very in vogue in like the 30s to 50s. A lot of upscale restaurants, it was the waiters that would bring a cart over and would cook things like whole fish and fillet the fish in front of you, cook tableside steaks. One of the key things to remember about this dish is because traditionally it's cooked tableside, that steak would have to be very thin. I'm using a top sirloin. You could also use a filet. You want to stick with those higher quality meats that aren't tough. And I'm going to trim it. I'm going to pound it out with this meat tenderizer. If you haven't used a meat tenderizer, you have to get one. I've probably had the same one since college, and it's just incredible what it does to pieces of protein. It just really, what the name says, it makes them really buttery, tender. I would use it for chicken scallopini or veal scallopini or chicken parmesan. The other benefit of tenderizing meat is the fact that because you make it thinner, it cooks much faster and usually more even because it's usually pounded to one even thickness. So for example, sometimes if you have a really thick chicken breast, that part of the chicken breast that's much thicker, you can pound that down so it's even with the other part. And that way the whole breast cooks evenly. It's another way to use your meat tenderizer. Another thing that was very popular back in the 30s to 50s was to cook tableside and to flambe the food, whether it was like Cherry's Jubilee, Bananas Foster, or this dish is flambéed with brandy, and it's just, huge presentation. Or what's the other classic one? Baked Alaska. A lot of times that was flambéed. So the ingredients for today's dish are the top sirloin, some shallots, some Dijon mustard, fresh parsley, butter, mushrooms, fresh ground black pepper, salt, some whipped cream, heavy cream, a quarter cup of beef stock or demi-glaze. I had one of those store-bought beef bouillon stocks, and I reduced it down by half. So I had a half cup of that stock and I reduced it to a quarter cup, and that's what I'm going to use in this recipe. Some brandy, brandy or cognac. All cognac is brandy, but not all brandy is cognac. And a little dash of Worcestershire sauce. So let's do this. This is quick. Once you have everything set up, but it is literally about a minute on each side. First thing we'll do is slice up some mushrooms. Everything in this dish you want to be sliced thin. Think about quick cooking. The thinner, the smaller things are, the quicker they cook. If you like the videos, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Dice up some shallots. Shallots are in the onion family, so if you don't have a shallot, you can use a really small piece of onion. It's probably about an ounce to 2 ounces, and just key thing is cut it up very finely. Whatever steak you use, whether it's a filet or top sirloin or New York, you want to make sure it's trimmed up nicely. You don't want any big chunks of fat on there. So any silver skin, which is always tough, you get that off. Just come as closely as you can. This is what they call silver skin here. I already trimmed some off. Then we'll cut it up in 2 equal pieces. When you pound the steak, the best thing to do is to put it between 2 pieces of plastic wrap. It keeps any splatter from going all over your kitchen. I'm just using the flat part of the mallet. A lot of recipes state to keep the steak about 1/2 inch thick. I like pounding it out really thin. So you can see that before and after is pretty dramatic. I would say I'd get it down to about 1/8 of an inch. The other thing the saran wrap does is keeps the meat from tearing. Sometimes if there's a lot of friction between tenderizer hammer and like a wooden cutting block, the meat will want to tear, and it seems to slide a little better on plastic wrap. So there you go, really thin piece. Okay, there we go. 2 big pieces of beef. We'll put some black pepper on there. Now I have some kosher salt that I'll sprinkle on. Okay, you want your pan about medium heat. We're cooking with butter, so that is why you don't want your pan scorching hot, or else you'll burn your butter. About a tablespoon of butter in there. Okay, what I'm looking for here is just when the milk solids begin to sizzle, that's going to tell me the pan's ready to go. I'm going to cook the steak about a minute on each side, maybe even 30 seconds. goes fast. And then I'll remove the steak, cook the rest of the ingredients, make the sauce, and then pour the sauce over the steak. So it's starting to brown on the edges. Right away, put it in away from you. I'm going to turn down the heat just a little bit. I'll flip the steak over. Right away, just so my other ingredients start to warm up, I'll put it in the dish with the steak. So that was less than a minute on one side, maybe another 40 seconds or so on the other. Okay, I'll remove the steak. Now I will finish sauteing the mushrooms. Honestly, the mushrooms will take longer to cook than the steak did. Put in a pinch of salt. Mushrooms are smelling good. They're browning up a little bit. I'll add in some shallots. My green onions. Once you put in your shallots and green onions, cook it for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. You basically just want to cook them and make them a little translucent. I have my shot of brandy ready to go. In restaurants, a lot of times, you do it straight out of the bottle, but if flambeing is something you're not used to, it's not a bad idea to pour 1 ounce in a separate container. That way you don't have to worry about putting too much in there and burning down your kitchen. To flambe, I'm going to crank up the heat a little bit because you need that alcohol to vaporize. Vaporizes, goes into the flame, and then catches on fire. It'll go fairly quick. Alcohol, it'll flambe as soon as the flame goes out. Hit it with the stock and then the cream. Voila! I'll let it go for just a few more seconds, burn off some of that alcohol. I have about a 1/4 cup of stock. I'm going to turn my heat low again. You want to scrape the pan because that's what you call deglazing. You want to get all those tasty bits off the bottom of the pan. About a 1/4 cup of cream. Add a pinch of salt because the cream does not have any seasoning. Put in my finishing parsley. Now I'll put in a Dijon, a dash of Worcestershire sauce. Now we'll add the steak back into the pan just to bring it up to temperature. And that's it, plate and serve. Hey, thanks for joining me. Now you can make Steak Diane a classic. Cooks very fast. Remember, anytime you're kind of in a hurry, you want to cook that steak faster or a piece of chicken, if you pound it out thin, it's going to cook much faster. It smells incredible. Thanks for joining me. Now go cook for someone you love.